Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first panel discussion which we have about decoding the RPA intelligent hyper automation bus. So we have our panelist as Mr. Uday Jose, who is the managing director of Enate India. And we also have Chethan Prabhudeva, global head of platforms and products from Tech Mahindra. We also have Suresh Iyer, CIO, Blue Stars. We also have Mistry. I hope that's pronouncing that correct, sir. Khushru Mistry. Yes, CIO and Senior Vice President, Eureka Forbes. We also have Gururaj Rao, the CIO from Mahindra Finance. I welcome all of you over here, and Uday and Chethan will be moderating this panel discussion. So over to you guys. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And you have to unmute yourself, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Anupam. Hi, all. Thank you for taking time out for today. I think we'll just start off with a little bit of introductions. I'll just give a quick, so I'm going to be moderating this as the lead moderator, and Chethan is going to be supporting me. So we'll just do a couple of things. Me and Chethan will just introduce ourselves, and then I will just set the agenda and the context around intelligent automation. And then if you can go through the rest of the panelists, if you can introduce yourselves, share a little bit about your background, what sort of exposure you have had to intelligent automation, we can kind of open up the discussion and then build on from there. So broadly, so I'm Uday. I'm MD of Enate India, which is basically an orchestration platform designed to bring together different types of digital workers and manage them along with humans to ensure end-to-end automation. So that's me. Chethan, can I just hand over to you?
Sure. Good morning. I'm Chethan, based in Bangalore. I look after the product platform business for TechM. We have two dimensions of products and platform. One is on the horizontal area, which is cross-industry, be it on AI, warranty, cloud, etc., digital products. And second is industry-specific product platform, be it for farm, be it for manufacturing, etc. So happy to be here and over back.
Chethan is not coming across to me clearly. Can the rest of you hear him?
Yeah, I was able to. Yeah.
Okay, maybe problem at my end then. Thank you for that, Chethan. So I'm just going to do a quick single slider on intelligent automation, and then we'll just open up the panel for the rest of the introductions. So broadly, this is to kind of set the stage so that everybody in terms of the audience and all understand what we are talking about for anyone who's not familiar. If you see bots in isolation, any kind of bot, be it RPA, OCR, AI, ML, all of those are actually built for repetitive tasks, usually mundane tasks, and are built to solve a certain type of task-based automation. But if you see a real-world customer journey or a real-world service cycle, it's far more complex. What you need is basically all of these different complementary technologies working together to manage and deliver the end-to-end customer automation journey. And that is what is the difference between RPA of the sort of first wave of automation, which was mostly RPA where repetitive tasks were being automated, and where the industry is moving now, which is the need for much more sort of end-to-end complementary skills talking to each other alongside humans. So this need to manage handoffs between all these elements placed in any order as many times as needed is what is needed to deliver intelligent automation. And orchestration is what Enate does. And orchestration actually productizes this ability to combine these complementary technologies and humans seamlessly to deliver intelligent automation going into the future. So that's all I will share in terms of a slide. And now if we can just move on to the rest of the panel for introductions, that would be really good. So who would like to go next, please? So Suresh, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. Let me start. Hi, my name is Suresh Iyer. I represent Blue Star Limited. Blue Star is a market leader in air and water conditioning and purification products, and we also have a global presence. In fact, we are a company who is more than 75 years old in the market, so we do have a rich legacy to follow. Blue Star is, in fact, I've been in Blue Star for 30 years, more than 30 years, so I know it pretty much inside out. It's a company which is very, very, while the legacy, it's also very modern in its thinking as well. So we do have state-of-the-art infrastructure, and our digital transformation itself has advanced quite a bit. And we have literally embraced every single technology out there, whether it's RPA, whether it's AI, whether it's ML. I mean, we got them all, and most of them are working as well, which is also quite interesting. So
Good.
That's about us.
Thank you, Suresh. Looking forward to hearing your perspectives. There are very few businesses we come across which have actually, like you say, used everything and it's working. So looking forward to hearing more on that. So Guru or Khushru, who would like to go next, please?
Sure. Khushru Mistry, I'm the CIO and the Senior Vice President for Eureka Forbes. I think most of the people would know Eureka Forbes as a water purification, home water purification, again, air, and also air purification. And also we do a lot of work on innovative technology, specifically the new product which we have, which is just about coming into the market, which is the Corona bag. So it's physics, not chemistry. So it's prevention, not a cure. Technology is being utilized extensively in Eureka Forbes because of the very reason of the customer. So we keep the customer in the center, and then we evolve the technologies around it. This to make sure that we are giving the right experience, the correct experience, which includes from sales right up to the service journey. And what we have evolved with that is called what we try and call is the lifetime value of the customer.
You've just gone on mute.
Sorry, my apologies. So instead of calling the lifetime value of the product, we call it the lifetime value of the customer relationships which we maintain, and that's where we utilize technology. And every single technology has got to be utilized in order to ensure that we are up to speed with the current requirements of the customer.
Thank you for that. Guru, over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. This is Gururaj from Mahindra Finance. I manage information technology for Mahindra Finance and its subsidiaries. We are 25-year-old company, and we are leaders in rural and semi-urban India financing, with a customer base in over 2 lakh villages. We are spread out across the country. In every district of the country, we have a branch, and we have about 1,500 of those branches. So in terms of technology, we have been enthusiastic about investing in technology, both for a digital model wherein you can apply for a fixed deposit online completely, or for a consumer durable loan, even if you don't have any relationship with the organization right now, and get a loan in a few minutes. To the physical model, where 60% of our collections from the rural customers is in cash, and with 15,000 field-based employees. So the technology stack is pretty widespread, and as Suresh also mentioned, we are also fairly enthusiastic about using technology. And only exception is where we invested in blockchain and went live with it, and now we have, after about a year or so, we have decided we do not need to continue it any further. So, that's an exception.
Didn't catch that, Guru. Need to continue?
We don't need to continue with blockchain at this moment. Okay, so that's the background of Mahindra Finance and technology in Mahindra Finance. Look forward to further discussions on this panel.
I think that's one question I'll have for you, Guru, when we get into a use case. Why did you decide to withdraw from blockchain? And I'm sure Khushru might have something to add to that based on the crypto discussion, right?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, everyone, and welcome to the panel. So what we're going to do is mostly talk about intelligent automation, and just the idea is to kind of help all of us learn from each other, and including the audience as well. So let's start right at the sort of basics. How do you sort of go about and the more I'm going to ask the panelists to keep it as real as possible within the context of things which you have done, so that audience can kind of relate to things which they hear. So let's start off with a little bit of conversation around discovery and planning. When I say planning, I mean ROI, KPIs. What you're kind of trying to achieve. How do you kind of go about spotting the right areas to bring in intelligent automation versus RPA, and how you kind of go about sort of executing that and measuring success. So, can I ask who would like to raise a hand and volunteer for the first piece?
Yeah, I can. Let me, if,
All right, Suresh, sounds good.
with the permission of my co-chair, co-panelist rather,
Absolutely.
let me take a stab at this. See, I think, as I said, we have been on the digital journey for quite some time. In fact, the last 6 years. And our first priority was obviously to automate all the manual areas or the areas where there was literally no coverage of any automation. I think that was one good thing which we did, because we had most of the systems in place. 4 years back, we went into IoT. 3 years back, we went into artificial intelligence and machine learning. 2 years back, we went into RPA, because that's when we felt we were ready with all the systems and we could fundamentally leverage it. Our first foray into RPA, or the first set of use cases which we implemented, were fundamentally around areas of which were catering to compliance, business controls validation, and productivity. Okay, I don't think we were getting any exotic beyond that. So it was good up to a certain point where you could ensure coverage for compliance. You could ensure that it was going on and on. I mean, it was repetitive, and there were very few errors which could. I mean, we were covering more as compared to having a person doing it, which was only a sampling, right? Productivity as a measure, we found that, well, it was varying. Beyond a certain point in time, we started to wonder whether RPA was really making sense, because we were not really getting the real meaty use cases in, or real value for the money. Our bot was running at some 75%. We were not even letting it run 100%. So that's when we sort of re-examined the whole thing, and that's when we realized that, yeah, RPA is good for structured, routine, repetitive kind of work, but then there's only so many things you can do. Okay. Beyond that, you certainly need a little bit more intelligence embedded in it. You need a little bit more things to be done, which RPA by itself would not do it. So, you know what? It's quite strange. We seem to have gravitated into an application builder, literally, where we had to bring in a bot. We had to bring in some element of data capture. We had to bring in some element of analytics. And then there was some learning also inbuilt into this. So some of the use cases, so what we started as a typical set of internal use cases, we now find ourselves moving more and more towards customer based use cases. Okay. And we are literally seeing opportunities for us in both the sales and service areas. On the sales side, we are enabling our sales teams with very powerful bots, which allows them to, they literally don't need to do any much of thinking. They ask the question, or the bot itself feeds it based on whatever they are doing, their scope of involvement, or the dealers they are engaged with, what the dealer is doing, what the dealer is selling in a pin code. We are able to analyze that and make some suggestions also to the sales guy, saying that perhaps you should market this with this gentleman, because this is the product which is being sold in this area, as can be seen by the other dealers around him who are picking up more of this particular model. So it's become more and more intuitive for him, and the conversation which he's now having with the dealers has been literally transformed. Okay, he doesn't need. Earlier we used to push, but off late we are making intelligent pushes. Okay,
Interesting.
and more importantly, he's no longer having to decide on which dealer to call. The bot helps him. It tells him which dealer he needs to call in any day based on certain characteristics, maybe certain sales related information, maybe outstandings, maybe certain things happening within that area. So he's got a short list set of dealers whom he can reach out to along with what he needs to. So it's getting more and more intense, because as we progress down this path, we are seeing more and more things coming up. Of course, we are only impeded by other things which are still not enabled in order to get them to that get to them to the next step. It could be simple things such as missing data. It could be data not being organized in a fashion which is amenable to letting machine learning get applied on it, or analytics applied on it. The second thing which we are doing is on the service side, where we are actually working on, it's still not in production, but we think it can happen soon, where we are working on helping the service guy know what the fix is before he enters the site. So we are now trying to create that knowledge base which allows him to, the model, the nature of the problem, where the problem is, which locality the problem is. So based on certain such information, we are able to provide him with certain cues, which says that, hey, listen, this is what you should probably be looking at, because the same model had the same issue and this was the fix. So we are able to give certain intuitive responses, and then we capture the whole thing back as well in terms of what he did, so that we are able to feed our knowledge base and make it a little bit more richer in terms of the actual experience. So all in all, we are seeing quite some interesting days ahead of us. We are seeing, as we embark on, as compared to routine RPA, moving more into this kind of an arena, we are seeing new possibilities also emerge. And frankly speaking, I think it's endless. And what can limit us is only the systems and the data, and of course, availability of people of the right skills.
That's a very interesting one. So I'm just going to kind of consolidate some of what you have said, Suresh, just so that make sure we all understand it correctly. So broadly, what a lot of previous potential, this for the audience as well, what you would actually draw in terms of business intelligence through sort of reporting. In your context, sounds like you might have had disconnected systems, and you used a bot to basically aggregate from many different sources and drive some sort of analytics on it, and give your sales team a bit of a head start, saying, you don't worry about the investigation, we'll do that for you. Speak to these particular dealers and push out, right? So the sort of disparate systems is what your RPA sort of layer got all together. Awesome. That's a very interesting story. Thank you for that. Over to Khushru or Guru or Chethan. Anybody would like to come in with a few more such examples?
Oh, sorry. So I think Suresh has highlighted quite a broad areas of where I think everybody's trying to get the RPA and the intelligent automation fitted. I would say from a Eureka folks perspective, our journey has been quite nascent right now. We're just because our initial structures was basically trust your data. And our cloud journey assisted us in getting the data trusted. That means effectively consolidation of the data within the cloud into the data lake, migrating legacy-based systems into the cloud to get the benefits out of it. So I think that's where we started off with. But I just want to give you one example, is that when we talk about automation, one of the biggest issues which we had to go through was, should we do front to back or back to front? So is it front to back methodology or back to front identification of fitment? Okay, so that was I would say it's a dichotomy debate which is held by a lot of companies. Okay, which should go first, the horse or the cart sort of thing. But after a significant thought and I would say reviews, we started the journey, I would say quite recently, on looking at how can we utilize this technology for our customer. Okay, and we started with simple WhatsApp bots. Okay, WhatsApp for business bots. Okay, to automate some of our front-end processes on our call center. Now the journey is as I said, it's very nascent. It's about less than a month old now. But what we have identified is that the customers wish to communicate with you with a channel which they are very responsive to. WhatsApp, for example, in India. All of a sudden, we found that 70% of what used to come in as a call is now coming as a WhatsApp chat. And the chat is happening between a bot and the customer, and it's required with the agent. So this is just one example which I want to give. So our next steps is basically to bring in sentiment and prosodic analysis on what is happening because from a voice you can say, all right, the person was angry, the person was sad, the person was, did not like our service. But how do you recognize it when you're chatting? Okay. And I think this is where we have now started to enter into the prosodic side of it. And I believe that that will give, because yes, we have identified that this is the right channel to be utilized. People like it. And the diversity of range of ages in this case has been tremendously high. It goes all the way from, I believe, from 17 to 70. So people even with 70 years old are using WhatsApp as a channel of communication. So I think this is where we want to now get into, to do sentiment analysis and then try and have a deeper conversation with our customers. So this is just one example. Of course, it's utilized in sales and service and everything, which we are doing it, with the nudges. Okay, but I think this was a very important example to be provided, that how bots can make a big difference to the way we provide customer service.
And Khushru, is your sort of longer term plan then to come in behind with a intelligent automation stack?
Oh, absolutely, because those stacks are being built, in the back end. So the data lake arena, which consolidation of data, all right, the different sources of data which come in. For example, we do water testing, right? So we absolutely know the quality of water, which is called the TDS, the total dissolved solubles, across almost every pin code in this country because of the extent of the service which we have. Now, when you take that information and you start, and as your second point on your slide showed, it's the bot, the human intervention, the bot, the human intervention. When you try and mimic that through an entire process, it gives you, so if I have to come to your house, I would like to know what is the source of water, what is the quality of air within your area, so I can absolutely sell you the right product, because it will not allow me to sell a different product. It gives me only those product ranges which I can sell. So it's basically intelligent selling, right? So, you may want to go with a product, but we will tell you the reasons why you should go with a particular product. Because ultimately, you can't live without water, you can't live without air. So why not breathe and drink the best which is around, sort of thing. That's what we are trying to do.
Awesome, thank you for that. Guru, can we come over to you?
Yeah, as I said in my introduction, Mahindra Finance is a very widespread organization across the country in terms of physical presence, and a lot of transactions happen with the customers on the field. It's not necessary that at that point of time the systems need to be connected, or there should be mobile connectivity out there. So in many of these situations, we have a lot of information lying offline and then getting synchronized. And then how do we manage all this data? How do we ensure that there is a reconciliation of all this financial information? We have, a tight control over where our cash flow is. 60% of our collections are in cash, as I said, which is about 1,500 crores per month. So all these transactions, while a lot of transactions happen right in the branches, okay, or on the field, how do you reconcile all that information? How do you ensure that you are compliant with the various regulations at any point of time? That is where we have handoffs coming into bots. That is where we have reconciliations happening across statements using bots. We have governance steps happening where information is collected from government sites or posted onto government sites using bots. So the focus has been more on the completeness and accuracy of financial transactions, the governance piece, the compliance piece, because they have a particular cost to the business. Okay, I mean, we are not talking here about, I have 15,000 people on the field, can I make them 14,000 or, something like that. That's not productivity for us. Our value from this entire technology is with regard to being in control of financial information. And that's what we are aiming for. And we have succeeded in quite a few of these processes. The other point is we have also been revamping our entire process model, the business process model. Right from being 100% decentralized or almost 100% decentralized, we are moving to a large portion of centralization. And when that happens, the centralization is not going to be through human interventions. It's predominantly going to be through robotic processes. And that's again another factor which we are taking into consideration when we use this technology. So the benefits or the use cases are not purely, substituting human labor or that kind of activity. It's more to do with control, with accuracy, with regard to the value that the organization sees. For Mahindra Finance, money is the raw material, money is the supply. Okay, or any other finance organization for that matter. So as long as you are in control of that pipeline, you are able to handle a lot of stuff, and you need to be, because a large portion of the organization is offline. Okay, so how do you ensure that? And that's where these kind of solutions.
Thank you, Guru. So Chethan, if you can now come in on. So I think on this panel we have got a good mix. We have got enterprise businesses. We've got Chethan from Tech Mahindra who can talk about trends and stuff like that. And I'm from products. So I think good to hear how what Chethan has to talk about trends around discovery, ROI, how they are evolving.
Yeah, I think. Am I audible, right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I think very rightly, as Khushru, Suresh, Gururaj said, there are different drivers on for each enterprise how they approach automation, right? So when we work with our enterprise customers, about 120, 130 customers whom we service on automation AI area, each come with a different driver. Sometimes it's compliance, control, visibility, as Gururaj said. Sometimes it's about intelligence or insight sales people or customer service people, etc. Sometimes it's pure speed, right, of getting things done. And then, of course, the customers also look at it from an efficiency standpoint. So we've seen drivers around speed, efficiency, intelligence, control, compliance as the common drivers for various customers. The other thing that we are seeing is uh, traditionally most businesses have been process-led companies, right? There's a lot of processes, a lot of thereby automation becomes essential. But increasingly, more and more businesses are becoming data-led businesses. So that's where I think there's a continuum between applying IA for the process side and applying AI for the data side, so that you can take advantage of both spectrum. I'll give you an example. So one of the large automotive customers in US, traditionally we were doing warranty automation. They process about 1 lakh warranty claims every day. And we spent about 8 months to automate the entire process, where between the dealers, between the claimant, between the supplier and the OEM, because you require reconciliation between all of them to address a claim. So that was automated over 8 month engagement. And soon after that, we discovered that the next step is to actually look at the data that we have now and see how can we identify fraudulent claims. Now that 1 to 2% fraudulent claim identification is a lot of money savings for the OEM. So on one hand, you're applying IA to do straight to processing, where the KPI would be speed and number of automated reconciliation transactions done. On the other hand, the KPI was outcomes when you start applying this to identify fraudulent claims. So I think enterprises largely looking at both sides, how to use all these technology and tools to look at predictability, insight, speed, efficiency, compliance. And we've seen enough examples in our experience on all of those areas.
Thanks for that, Chethan. I think though a lot of panelists have touched on it, I think it's still worth calling out that sounds like the industry there were a lot of fears, right, about job losses, and it's all being done for for saving headcounts and things like that. But I think all that is kind of now thing of the past. I think people have understood it's not really about that, and it's much more about running a business better and running processes better, right? In fact, I haven't really heard about many cases where bots are being used to actually augment and improve top line, actually increase the sales. So that's a very interesting theme which has come out of a couple of these conversations. Good. So let's move on to our next question, which is around challenges when it comes to moving from the first wave of RPA to more sort of intelligent automation, where you kind of bring in things together. And when it comes to challenges, I think the first thing which certainly caught my interest, and hopefully some of the other panelists as well, is Guru, your statement on diving into blockchain and then taking a step back. Just kind of, can you just talk us through what were your what was your experience, what was the use case, and why the change of stance there?
No, I mean, see, the fact was that the blockchain project was an experiment. It was not necessarily waiting for a business case. Okay, so it was an attempt by the organization to enable people to, learn how to use new technology and see what can we do with that. And we managed to set up a production system for supply chain financing, and it works well. The point is that see, we need to realize that some technologies work at a strategic level, some technologies are an operational technology, while all of these fashionably get clubbed under the term digital. Okay, each one has its own area of decision making. Operations are set in an operating model, and then you just need to automate them. Then that's RP. That's okay. There's no great organizational change management involved. However, if you have to set up a totally new line of business, have a new set of strategies, okay, and that's centered around a new technology, that's a totally different ball game. Are you interested in that business at all? Are you looking at the viability of setting up a new line of business, a new organization, new positioning in the industry? That's a different call altogether. So at the end of the day, after evaluation of various strategic parameters, if the organization decides that this is not something which we want to do now, that's it. So that's fine. So you have had the opportunity to experiment with a new technology. You got people who have had hands-on experience. Got the skill. That's about it.
So it was not really about the technology. It was more about the fit of that.
No. The technology works. The technology works. I mean, we did a few transactions. People were trained. Everything is fine. But this is not the right moment to leverage that technology for us.
Sure. So anyway, open question then to the rest of the panelists. Within specific use cases, what were the sort of challenges you faced when it came to actually making this whole intelligent automation concept real and interconnecting various things to get, to move from task-based to, ultimately better customer journeys? And how did you kind of go about addressing them? If anybody can come in with.
Yeah, let me go first. Khushru, you want to go ahead?
No, that's all right. Okay, please do.
Okay. Well, see, I think the main thing is, of course, coming out of the concept. See, that is where I think there is still a big lacuna, because the technologies offer a whole lot of things, and unless you have that imagination to, think it through and come out with some interesting outcomes, it will be useless. And that is where I think there is always a challenge, because it requires a special kind of person who understands both the technology and the business in order to come out with those kind of intelligent outcomes, okay, and then plan for it. So the challenge is there, where you have to literally learn the business, because the business is not going to learn the technology so easily, okay? And that is where we find a significant amount of our time going and trying to understand, trying to open up the whole book of the business division and trying to look deeper and deeper to expose some of those things through which we think we can help them better. Okay, so the first is getting those kind of, we get use cases, but we are never satisfied with the first few iterations, because we know that there is something more powerful which we could solve. And unearthing that is where we see a lot of time going by, and that's where it affects our time to market as well. Okay. Number two, once we have identified it, making the business understand and accept it is always a question mark, because it is a change management. It's a new way of doing things. I mean, my salespeople are now going through a different way of selling as compared to what they used to pound the streets. Now they have to do that intelligently. Okay. They no longer need to literally call everybody up every now and then. They need to call only those people who need to be called, which is a change for them. And therefore, they need to change their tactics as well, because at the end of the day, they also have to maintain the relation. So what do they do with other dealers whom they are not called? So it's a shift in their mindset as well. So getting them to do that and getting everybody to align to that is also a little bit of a challenge. But it happens. It's nothing. It's not an insurmountable challenge. And the third thing I think Khushru also touched upon it is data. Do you have it organized in the right way, and do you have the right data? Okay, I think that is where we are also having to change many of our systems in order to ensure that the quality is high. Okay, we have to be able to capture certain sets of data rather than keeping it like, let's say, an open text kind of a field. So many of those places we are intervening in our existing systems as well and trying to bring it in. And lastly, as I said, we have invested in each of these technologies as silos, right? They are not integrated per se, and I don't think anybody envisioned this at the start. And perhaps there could be I'm sure there are single technologies which do all of it, but whether they are powerful enough to do each of those areas perfectly or not is still a question mark. So, and even if there is, what do I do with the technologies which I've already invested in? I mean, this seems like a vicious circle now. Okay, so those are typically the areas which we find. We are trying to find answers by seeding our IT people inside the business, trying to get more and more experts, but it's not easy.
Yeah, change is always a challenge. Thanks for that, Suresh. Quite a lot of insightful points there. So, Chethan, Guru, Khushru, who would like to pitch in?
I think Suresh pointed out certain very critical areas, and I think I would like to just elaborate a little bit more on some of them. One is the cultural mindset. Okay, can you go from a emotion-based company to a data-driven company? Okay, and I think if you can cross that hurdle, okay, this technology will find a place in the way we work. Okay, and I think that is a lot more important. Okay, so automation should not be built into, oh, I'm going to reduce the cost, I'm going to fire the people. It should be built on the benefit structures first. All right, the outcome will be a certain amount of reductions. Okay, but that reduction is not about the people. The reduction is on your cost of doing that particular transaction rather than cost of removing people. And if you build that business case on that, that provides I would say, the perfect fit for a cultural mindset of the company. The second point, of course, Suresh also referred to, was the process fragmentation, which is basically always the case in any kind of project or product which you have, specifically when you have legacy-based equipment, infrastructure, IT ecosystems. Do you fit the legacy-based system to the RPA? Do you get the RPA to fit the legacy-based system where the intelligent automation is always a dichotomy which has to be very clearly identified? Any mistake in this can have disastrous results, because a bot does not go for a coffee break, does not have to sleep. It just goes run. So effectively, if you have a problem and you put a bot on it, your problem will become faster, and it'll keep on creating a problem for you much faster than what you can imagine. And the third point, which I would like to highlight, is the availability of talent. Okay. This is one area where I do believe that if we are not cautious about it, this is where we will fail. Any technology fails. And this is the technology which cannot be, because it's low code, no code, faster code implementation. I think this is where we need to be very careful. The correlationship between the in-house talent versus the outsource vendor relationship and integration needs to be very closely integrated. And my recommendation from what our experience shows is that bring in the functional expertise in-house, utilize the expertise of the IT partnership with the vendors in order to implement intelligent RPA. That's what my opinion is.
Thank you.
So,
just
to add.
So Guru, we'll just do a quick time check. We're down to the last, I think, 5 minutes or so. So Guru and then Chethan will just go quickly. Please.
Sorry. Yeah, we have run out of time. Yes, couple of points here. One is that when we talk about stitching together processes or systems to form an ecosystem or to participate in an ecosystem, um, you know. It is not only automation which would be a possibility. We could have other ways of integrations. We could have other ways of achieving the end-to-end straight through processing. Okay, so that needs to be evaluated. So every technology has its place and has its own strengths and weaknesses, and we have to go through that evaluation. We can't say that for everything, I have a hammer, so everything is a nail. That can't be the status. The other part is that as Khushru pointed out, we need to look at the skills. Yes, and every technology brings its own strengths and weaknesses, including risks, interoperability, and all that stuff. So those are basic things which need to be catered to. And the benefits could be in terms of anything, not just loss of manpower or whatever. That, I mean, people moving out due to technology is a consistent factor. There are different parameters, different reasons, and all that. Nobody needs to put in a technology for the sole reason of reducing manpower. That is not the intent.
Thank you, Guru. Chethan, over to you.
Yeah, I think very valid points said by all panelists, that it is the challenges for adoption is first of all around discovery, identifying the right area which can give a better bang for the buck, or make the company accelerate on the digital journey, for example. Equally, talent and domain knowledge. So when we as an SI go to work with our customers globally as well as in India, we are taking a more and more domain-centric approach where we have our consulting and domain experts who also have learned from various customer experiences, front end the conversation so that we can identify the right area first together from a business standpoint. So the business understanding becomes very important for us as a tech provider to solve the problem. That's one. Second, from our perspective, what we are trying to do to accelerate or help the customers is to create as many pre-built solutions based on experiences. So, for example, we build solutions around speech analytics for all the Indic languages and Western languages, which can accelerate. For example, the point Khushru was talking about in terms of how do you do text analytics or speech analytics and use that to uh, improve the customer experience, right? Similarly, we have seen customers also wanting to adopt automation in an incremental journey. So we have sort of looked at models where we can provide automation as service, wherein they can pick up the use case at their speed and pace. And we are working in a commercial model which is OPEX friendly instead of spending a lot of CAPEX before seeing the outcome. So we worked out some such models as an SI based on our customer asks, based on whatever assets, tools, products we have in our kitty, working with partners like Enate and other AI and IA vendors. So, but I do agree that the adoption challenges, the discovery challenges, and the talent and domain knowledge challenges do persist, and that's where probably it's more and more an ecosystem and a collaborative play today. Uh, like I think Suresh or Khushru was saying that maybe they bring the functional knowledge as an enterprise, but leverage vendors for the technical expertise. And partners like us are also trying to go more deeper to understand the business, whether it's banking or manufacturing or oil and gas, etc. So I think very valid perspective.
Thank you, Chethan. There's also some interesting trends then moving from capex-based approaches to opex. I think all of this kind of feeds into potential ROIs a business can expect. We are almost at the top of the hour, so I'll ask the organizer if we can kind of stay on a couple of more minutes. If there are any questions from the audiences, then happy to take those. So we'll just, if there's anything, please shout. Okay, I don't know where, Anupam, I'm not exactly sure where a question would pop up, but I'm assuming we will see it if it shows up.
If the questions are there, actually you can see it in the session area or the right hand side. You can see session event.
Yeah,
If there are any questions, there will be a yellow pop-up, but I don't see any questions over there. So I think we can close this with a closing note.
Sure. So thank you to all the panelists. Quite an interesting discussion there. Completely. When I started having these discussions, I mean, a couple of years back, when this sort of thing became a little bit more, started talking a little bit more of the limelight. All these automation conversations were about cost savings and those kind of angles. Today, it seems to have completely flipped, and conversations are about driving more revenue, and using automation to augment the business's ability to do things better. And there's really been no touch point around cost savings at all. So that's quite an interesting change. And in terms of trend, I think Chethan's points around taking new models to market where it is kind of, if I can maybe say, we're trying to commoditize, a lot of the automation capacity rather than enterprise having to invest heavy upfront and then may or may not, get ROI out of that. I think that's I think that's the way market will continue to mature and maybe give everyone access to automation. So thank you for that. Really useful and interesting. Thank you for all your time. Anupam, can I hand back to you? And we can
thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Uday and Chethan, for moderating this. And thank you, guest speakers. Thank you for being over here. We are closing this panel discussion now, and we'll be moving on to a presentation about how automation and analytic work with practical examples. So thank you for being in this session. I'll be starting the next session with Nataraj and Radhakrishnan in a very few seconds now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You all. Bye. Yes, bye-bye.
Thank you.